I'm saying bye to all the lies and all the times you cried, saying that I wasn't right, yet I was right by your side. You manipulator, playing games, your friends commentators, and I don't know what you say.
remember that a few months ago I did a 3D printed Godzilla 2019, 2022, 2021, whatever you want to call it. And it was It was okay. It had a lot of problems. If you remember correctly, the articulation wasn't particularly that good because whenever you would assemble the figure, it would break, and it ended up really causing a lot of issues with that particular section on this figure, and it mainly turned out to be more like a statue than a figure that has articulation. And don't get me wrong, the overall design was really great, but the engineering behind the articulation wasn't there, plus the resin type could have been a big deal as well. And a lot of people did like the figure. They gave a lot of feedback and were interested in that particular figure, but now I'm back with the upgraded version, and I'll get to it right now and compare both of them and explain a little bit of what's happening. But before anything, I want to give credits to El Tigre Blanco for creating this Godzilla figure, the upgraded version of Godzilla V2, if you want to call it like that. So what happened here is the whole articulation was switched from before. I don't know if you guys remember in the previous video how the articulation worked in this particular figure. It was reworked, but the design in general wasn't really changed. And here it is fully printed. I also used a different resin. It was a more resistant resin. You guys will probably see that in that video. I also combined two other different resins to see which one was better, and I can definitely tell you guys that whenever I was assembling this figure, I had a much better time with the ball joints. They didn't break like on this one. If you remember, the ball joints started to crack under pressure. Whenever I would have to push them together, they would simply break or just crack in general, and that's why I had to pretty much super glue that figure because it didn't work. The problem was probably the resin and the way the articulation was engineered. With this one, I can tell you guys that it was much better using that resin. I could definitely feel that it was much stronger. Moving these supports, attaching the pieces felt a lot different, and you guys can tell in general. I'll do a comparison that the resin is different. Now, from my experience, it's a beautiful design. You guys can see it really represents the legendary version of Godzilla. I really do like this design in general, and all the details that you can see throughout the body, really great. And I'll showcase more of what it has to offer towards the end of the video. Right now, I'm just giving you guys my thoughts and everything that went through it. Now, do I think it's a improvement over the first release? Yes, it's a big improvement, but not without the negative parts as well, which I'll get to that later down in the video. I will have to say that the engineering behind this is great, and at the same time kind of bad. Keep in mind that engineering articulation in general is super difficult. Not anybody can specialize and get you nice articulation that looks smooth and works properly. It takes a lot of time and thinking, and to do things and to make it look really smooth without any gaps. Okay? I want to point out the negative parts about this figure and things that didn't change for the better and just overall affected the articulation yet again. The main issue with this figure currently is some of the ball joints are still not the correct size and don't fit nicely. They don't go in smoothly. Now, particularly on the back side of Godzilla, around the spine, there's a big ball joint. That one still is very loose. You guys can definitely see that it's supposed to have articulation, but look how easily this ball joint comes out, and even on both sides it still doesn't fit correctly. It's extremely loose, and that's not a good thing. The problem is this one. It's not the right size to fit right here. Neither is it the right size to fit on this area right here. With a little bit of tweaking, I'm sure he can get down the right size for this. It's not a big deal. I'm pretty sure I can find a nice fix to make the articulation tighter overall, but just look at this. So it might go incorrectly, but the articulation is super loose because it's not really the right size for this. It's a little bit small. It should be a little bit bigger, but not too much, and then the articulation would be much tighter and smooth overall. And yeah, that's the main issue with this figure, that some of the ball joints still don't make sense or fit incorrectly. And same thing for this area. It's pretty much the same thing. It mirrors the same problem. So that's a feedback that I can definitely tell you that needs to be fixed with this particular figure. Not a big deal, just a minor issue. Now let's move on to the other major issue with this figure would be around the mouth area. The articulation still doesn't work perfectly because the ball joint is simply too small. You guys can see this is where the ball joint just didn't fit, and it broke on this particular figure because it was just simply too tiny and too thin, and it's supposed to connect right there. But I already talked to him and told him a way to fix this type of articulation. Just simply, the smaller the ball joint, it's going to cause a lot of issues in this particular figure. So hopefully with the suggestions that I gave him, it can turn out to be much better. But the articulation on this, if it was to work, this is how it would be done. You guys can see that the mouth area would open like this and close, and it can still open much more, but because of what happened, this is how it would look. And in general, it looks really good when it's closed and open. I don't really see much of an issue, and the accuracy on this figure is really great, I have to say. Maybe some of you guys might have an issue with how it looks, but overall I really do like it. It represents the legendary version to me. Another issue is the articulation right here simply just crashes too much. What I mean is when you move the arms, you guys can see that it simply leaves a lot of gaps, and the articulation scrapes between the details that it has on top, like it does with the Monster Arts Godzilla 2021. It simply just makes the articulation feel a lot worse, and it doesn't really give it the proper articulation that it really needs. And overall, around the arm and the hand, all this part needs to be reworked. You guys can see there's a lot of gaps in between the articulation and the ball joints. I think that there's a much better way to do articulation here. Another thing that I have issues with is the ball joints don't seem to fit correctly as well from the arms to the hands, and it causes a lot of problems where the ball joints simply fall off. You have to be extremely careful to, not cause any issues. But I've tried multiple times. I even tried heating up the ball joints and the figure so it doesn't really have any problems. But as it turns out, it's not the ball joints, it's the size of the placement where the ball joints are placed, that some of them don't have the right size or just don't have the right fit overall. And you guys can see that on this particular ball joint, what has to be done is that it's too thin. So I would suggest that probably installing a medium-sized ball joint like this would make a lot more sense. That way the articulation works like this. I think it works a lot better. It feels a lot tighter and responsive compared to what this is. And it's not bad, like I said, but it simply just doesn't have the right fit for the articulation to work properly. And even if I connected, you guys can see how the articulation works. Demonstrate a little bit of the articulation, that way you guys have a better idea. I'm going to remove the mouthpiece because it really just gets in the way. But if everything just worked the way it's supposed to, then this figure would be a lot better for sure. Has potential to be a really great figure overall if the articulation and those small issues get an update properly to fix all of them. And it's not that big of an issue where the articulation doesn't really work, or it's a big issue where you have to redesign the whole thing. It's smaller issues, like I mentioned, that need redesign here and there and adjustments, and that's pretty much it. I mean, it looks really great. I think this figure has potential to become a top-notch Godzilla figure, in my opinion, if it's done properly. And we're in talks to make this work. I'm not really giving up fully on this figure. I want this to be great, but right now the focus is on a different project. We'll revisit this figure with another major update that is considered a redesign in general from the whole design and engineering with articulation. That way everything looks better. And for everybody wondering about the tail, it does have articulation, but it's still not really perfect. As you guys can see, it works more like the dragon type of articulation figures that you find online. Nothing particularly impressive that you would be impressed like Haya or Monster Arts, but it's almost there. I mean, you really have to be careful with it, and again, it really depends what type of resin you're using. If you're using something like normal resin, it's not really recommended from my end. You definitely have to use a more resisting type of soft resin to make this work properly, but it's there, you know, it can get the job done with normal poses, but don't expect anything too crazy compared like Monster Arts or other companies. And again, I think it's a very beautiful figure overall. And for the leg articulation, you guys can definitely see what we're working with right here. Now, another issue on my end, this would be not an issue with this figure, is that I accidentally damaged the ball joints for the feet. Accidentally damaged the ball joint, and whenever I attach the feet right here between the legs, it really doesn't fit perfectly because of that. But that's my problem. It's not a problem with the figure. If I was to pretty much print out the ball joints, it would fit perfectly, but that's just an issue that I have where they fall off pretty easily. And you guys can see that the ball joint right there took a little bit of damage because when I pretty much took off some pieces, doesn't make the right fit with the feet area. Overall, I think the articulation is really nice on this figure. Again, you really have to know how to work out the articulation. It's not, like I said, perfect. It gets the job done for a figure that needs some type of movement. Final thoughts, it's a nice upgrade compared to the previous figure, though it still has some issues that are minor. Keep in mind, they're minor, but it still works. If you're someone that isn't really looking for crazy articulation, then this is a great opportunity for you. It's a really nice design with really impressive details. I gotta say that my favorite part about this figure is the way it looks, how much details it brings to the table. It's really nice compared to Monster Arts and Haya when you compare them in terms of details, articulation. If it was to work properly, I would have to rank it up between the top 5 best Godzillas for the legendary version. I think in general this is an absolute better design than the Monster Arts Godzilla 2021. The head sculpture just looks a lot better. The details, everything pops. It looks really nice, and the upgraded resins that I used on this figure definitely made it a lot easier in terms of assembling and putting together the figure compared to this one, which was a total nightmare. Just the whole ball joints breaking apart, cracking was really frustrating, and I would recommend El Tigre Blanco to put numbers. That way people don't get confused when assembling the figure. Numbers like A1 to A2 or 1 to 3. It would be extremely helpful because yes, the files might have the correct numbers, but when you have so many pieces, it really becomes confusing, and definitely putting numbers would be a big plus for me. And overall, I would definitely consider this to be an upgrade versus the previous one. But again, don't expect anything crazy. It's still a nice figure in general. Now, if you're wondering, can I purchase this figure the way it is? No, it's not the way how you see it right now. This is my work. I had to print this figure as you saw in the video. It took about 3 days with the process of printing, curing, and not to forget that it's totally my fault, but something funny that happened. I could have sworn that I had printed out of the tail yesterday, but for some reason, whenever I was about to cure the tail section, I simply couldn't find the tail tip or the ball joints that I needed. And I was like, where the hell did I left them? I was searching my whole room, searching different places. I simply couldn't find it. And then it hit me that when I was removing these supports, I'm pretty sure I got confused and threw them away in the trash. So what ended up happening is I had to go back, reprint this whole section and the ball joints to make it work. But that's on my part. It was totally silly, and that's what happens when you print super late at night and you've been doing this for 3 days. It took me about 3 days. It's not easy for people that think that whenever you do purchase this figure, it's gonna be the whole figure. No, purchasing would be the file, and that's about it. You need a resin, you need a 3D printer to do this. You need resins, you need the curing, you need a lot of things that you saw in this video. And it's very expensive, especially with this brand new resin. It was not cheap. But for anyone that is interested in purchasing this figure, I do have the green light. That means that I do have permission to sell this specific figure the way it is. Now, you cannot sell the files. You don't have the license. You don't have the rights if you do purchase this figure. You can't print it and sell it to someone else. But I do have direct permission that this particular figure that you see the way it is, it's on sale. If you're interested, let me know in the comments down below or message me in Ruby Studio. We can get in contact and I'll be more than happy to send this figure off. It's a one-time deal. I don't have the permission to sell multiple figures. It is just one figure, and this would be the particular figure. The way you see it, it's going to be shipped to you. You have the freedom to paint it and customize it the way you want it. Now, if you're interested, let me know, but keep in mind, it's not going to be the same price. It's going to be more expensive because of the resins that was used, my time that I dedicated to this figure, the curing, the alcohol, everything that went on to this figure. Hopefully you understand that it's a very long process, stressful but fun at the same time. If you do enjoy this video, let me know. Any suggestions, anything that you guys want to know for the future, I'll be happy to answer them. Now, the next project will be announced pretty soon, or it might get delayed. It really depends. Let me know what other figures you would love to see for the near future, something new. I don't want to keep bringing out the same figures that everybody's doing, like perhaps a Mutos, perhaps a Kong. Doing the same thing just gets really boring and it's not really creative in my opinion. So if you comment down below, make sure that your top list is creative and unique to your imagination and stylized if possible, or accuracy if that matters to you. I think this is a really nice figure. I do recommend it. If you are interested, let me know in the comments down below. This is RubiGamingx. I'll catch you guys next time. Enjoy the comparison.
You can see everything. So this is where all that power's coming from. Interesting. I never would have guessed you had this inside of you. I take it this isn't your first time seeing the shadow.
With that vision of yours, and a chakra more ominous than my own, you're the spitting image of Mother Uchiha from the Elder Days.
Never heard of her. Am I supposed to kill
that I wasn't right, yet I was right by your side. You manipulator, playing games, your friends commentators, and I don't know what you say about our private conversations, but it's got them hating. Thanks to all the rumors you be claiming. It's cool, I'm done with you, so they can throw you a celebration. You gon' hate it when you see me with somebody living better. I'm trying to tell you that me just doing me gon' have you jealous.
I know that I gotta stay away from all your games. Yeah, I know that I found somebody else to love me one day. You'll realize the grass ain't greener on the other side. No, you did me dirty for the last time, so now I gotta say goodbye. So now I gotta say
Yeah, my life is lovely now, I'm focused on me. You said you were about to die, I guess the car is on E. But see, I ain't even tripping, cause I just chose to believe that somebody gon' come around and give me just what I need. I don't wanna see you frowning.